You know, this area is really a great area because, you know, within a few hours distance, you got a lot of opportunities to catch bass. And not just any bass, but both largemouth and smallmouth. And a lot of great fisheries that hold a lot of big ones, right? Does anybody like to catch smallmouth bass? Yeah, me too. They're my favorite. You know, like I said, I was born and raised in Kalamazoo. You know, I grew up fishing all the lakes around in this region. You know, starting off in the spring, there's a lot of different techniques and things that you can use. And myself, I've just always loved to be more of a fast-paced fisherman. You know, it's really hard for me to go out there and cast a bait out there and just kind of work it back real slow. I'm more of a power fisherman. You know, I want to fish fast, I want to cover water, I want to make a cast with a spinner bait, get a strike, move on, get down the bank, got that trolling motor on high, covering water, trying to trigger reaction strikes. So, you know, because the biggest part of bass fishing to me it's not catching them, it's finding where they're at, right? It's easy, once you find them, it's a lot easier to catch them. You got to be around them, so you got to use techniques that you can be efficient to cover a lot of water. And you know, a jerkbait is going to be one of my key tools to find those fish. And in this area up here, I love to fish a jerkbait. The thing that we have a lot of in this region is we've got a lot of lakes and rivers that have pretty clear water. And for a jerkbait to be real successful, you got to have some clear water, because what you imitate with this presentation is basically a wounded bait fish. So the fish has to see it. You know, yeah, I mean, this jerkbait's got some rattles to it, it makes noise, but it's the action, it's the way that you work that bait, it's that darting side-to-side action, and the more erratic you can make it, the better you're going to catch fish. But they got to be able to see it. So if I go to a lake and I see that I can see down in the water a couple of feet or more, and a lot of our places, especially on the Great Lakes, you might be able to go down and see 15 or 20 feet deep. That's where a jerkbait is at its very best. A bass will come farther to hit this lure than any other lure that I've got in my tackle box. Their instincts tell them this is something that they got to go after. So what a lot of people do with a jerkbait is they cast it out there and they constantly jerk the bait and reel it all the way back to the boat. The biggest mistake that you can do is fish that bait that way. You got to work this bait with some slack in the line to really maximize the action. What I want my jerkbait to do is never go the same place twice. So I'm going to start my retrieve with slack in the line. I'm going to pop the bait forward, and then I'm going to pause it. And each time that I jerk it, I point the rod back at that lure. And boy, it doesn't take long till one of them's going to load up on it. And believe it or not, coming in today to the show, I had this bait tied on my rod, and the guy that was helping me carry him, John Kushner, he's from Quantum right here, he got it all caught in his coat. I had to cut two of the hooks off, and I still caught a bass with it. So jerkbaits are tremendously, tremendously effective. It's one of the best lures that I've got to find fish, because I know that even if I don't catch a bass with it, their instincts tell them that it's something that they've got to go after. When I'm fishing a jerkbait, I like to use a fast reel. You know, I'll use my KVD Tour reel or a new EXO in a high-speed version, because I'm never pulling it with the reel, and all I got to do is just turn the handle just a little bit to pick up that slack line. I'm always working it with slack, and all the reel does is pick up a little bit of that slack. So when you're fishing this bait, you want to get that maximum action. You want that bait to jump left and right, and a good lure is important. I've got this new Strike King slash bait that is a tremendous jerkbait. It's got great side-to-side action, but to make it dart like that, you want to have a rod that's got some good tip action to it. So I like to throw a jerkbait on a rod like this. It's an all graphite rod, so that when I cast my jerkbait out there, 50 yards out there on a windy day, and I snap that rod tip, it makes that bait respond even at the end of a long cast. So I'm going to match it up you know, with some fluorocarbon line. If you're using a crankbait or a jerkbait and you want to make the bait run deeper or shallower, just adjust the size of line that you've got it tied to. When I cast it out there and start working it, all I'm going to do is pop the bait forward, sometimes 2 or 3 times, and then stop it. And it doesn't take long till they're going to come after it. I mean, a jerkbait is a deadly, deadly technique that works all season long. You know, a lot of people think these are just springtime lures, But especially up here in the north, when you've got this tied on, they can't help themselves but to chase it down. And it's a lure that I use all season long, and especially smallmouth bass. They're so aggressive, but the way that you fish the bait is always the same. You always start and finish with that slack in the line. And when it pauses and it just hangs there, this is suspending bait, in that cold water like that, the fish just think it's a dying shad, and they're gonna come up there and bite it.